Hey guys, I wanted to make a quick video today on rotating the tires on the Power Wagon. I noticed a strange wear pattern because I tow so often, and the heavy trailers will compress the rear suspension, which takes the weight off of the front suspension. I'm getting cupping on the front tires. That's this uneven pattern where your tread is higher in certain areas than others. And the reason for this is because of the soft rear end for off-roading is not conducive to towing, frankly, and we tow a lot. So I'm going to move the fronts to the rear on this first tire rotation. This is actually the second set of tires, but every time I have a new set of tires, the first rotation will be front to back. The second rotation, I will cross-rotate them. This is the Goodyear Wrangler DuraTrack, and it is unidirectional, so you can mount them on either side and it won't compromise the longevity. I'm kind of old school and I like these pneumatic tools. I've had this since I was working as a mechanic in high school, and it works as well today as it did back then. But there's so many good battery-operated impact wrenches today that'll do a fine job. But if you're going to go pneumatic, you are going to need a compressor. And every shop needs a compressor because you can use them for so many different things. You'll need some tire chocks. Because I'm doing one side at a time, I'm only going front to back on my rotation. So I will chalk the front tire on the opposite side from the side that I'm raising up. And I'll also have the emergency brake on. So the rear tire is locked, the front tire is chalked, and it's not going anywhere. And this is an old school torque wrench. The torque specification for the Power Wagon with these conal shaped lugs is 130 pounds. And this wrench goes up to 150 pounds. Most torque wrenches today have a little gauge that you set and it'll click when you get to your desired torque. But this old school one's got this little dial. And since I buy tools to last forever, they usually do last forever if you take really good care of them. Another two tools that I have that you may want to invest in if you're going to be doing this regularly and maintaining your own vehicles is a floor jack. And this is a 3.5 ton, and it'll lift up to about 7,000 pounds, which is way more than we need. I mean, the whole truck weighs 7,000 pounds, but I'm only lifting a quarter at a time. So invest in it once, and it'll pay dividends throughout your whole life. Another absolute must for any project you're doing where you're going to raise your vehicle are jack stands. This is small, compact 4-ton jack stands. I've got taller ones there if I need them. I like the small ones because for this particular job, I don't need to go that high, and the other ones are a little bit too high. Never use a hydraulic jack alone without jack stands. Hydraulic jacks can leak and lower the vehicle down and crush you, where jack stands are static and they pretty much can't fail. Mechanically, it's almost impossible for them to fail. So please don't be cheap. Get some jack stands. They're really not that expensive, and again, they last forever. So let's talk jack placement. I like to use my floor jack to lift right here on the center of the axle, and then I put my jack stand right here centered on the axle. And that's not just me saying that. I did go to the website and verify that Dodge does recommend that you center the jack on the axle. So now I've got the jack and the jack stand both on the axle in those two places. So when I lower the jack, it rests down on the jack stand, and we're ready to head to the front. There's a metal plate that's welded onto the axle control arm, or the A-arm, and I like to put the jack on that plate. And then I put my jack stand right here, centered on the axle, right in front of where the shock absorber is mounted. When I was in high school, I used to work on the lube rack, and we had these giant hydraulic lifts, and it's got 4 arms, and you would spread the arms out underneath the body. We had some pretty big vans and other larger vehicles come in once in a while. You always want to balance the vehicle by putting those arms underneath the frame. And then as it lifts up from the frame, the wheels are going to drop down because you have that articulation, especially on a truck like this. But when you're working in a garage, you don't want to have to lift the vehicle up so high. So putting the jack underneath the axle or part of the suspension that's strong enough to support the vehicle weight will mean a lower lift. These are fairly big tires, and they're not lightweight. So to avoid any unnecessary back strain, just roll the tire up onto the pry bar, then wiggle it a little bit until you get the lugs to approximately line up. You lift the pry bar effortlessly with your right hand while you just push the tire forward, and it'll slide right onto the lugs. I'm just going to grab a flashlight, take a look at the brake pads, the brake lines, the hub, the seal. Everything looks great. We'll check that on all 4. This truck's pretty new, so everything's in great shape. We'll go ahead and bolt this tire on. And again, you're going to use that cheater bar just to get that up in place effortlessly. I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and was lucky enough to be able to land a job working out at the Charlotte Motor Speedway as a camera grip during the races. I was able to watch those guys jack up the car and get it back on its way in seconds. Even at 1,000 speed, I am no match for the NASCAR pit crews. You'll notice that I had to lower the front to be able to use a torque wrench. Because that front tire is free spinning and there's no brake on it, I need to put that on the ground before I can torque it. Or in the rear, I've got the emergency brake so I can torque it while it's up in the air. All right, guys, thanks for joining me. We'll see you on the next video.